Welcome to the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa, where we discuss dating and other significant relationships. Welcome back, everybody. It's the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa. Hello, Poppy.
Hello, hello.
Listen, now, I know the people have seen you out there in the beautiful, beautiful town of Miami. How was it?
Oh man, that was amazing. I tell you what though, I was shocked how hot it is. It is unimaginable. Like it's 10 a.m. and you're cooking. Like you get out there 5 minutes and you're roasting up. It is insane how caliente it is. But great
Barbecue.
time. The Cuban food was amazing and the scenery is on another level. So great
Awesome.
time.
Did you meet the love of your life? That's what everyone wants to know.
What's that?
Has the future Senora been found out in the streets of Miami?
I did not. I had some interesting conversations with people, but everybody kind of seemed to have their own agenda down there.
What a great segue in tonight's show.
Yes, it is a great segue.
So, should you wait 90 days before sex in a relationship? Inquiring minds want to know.
I think the premise of it is great. However, putting a set date to me is a bit odd, just because what's the difference between date 88 and date 90? Like to me, it should
Days
happen.
really give you that much more information.
And plus, if you tell a man, hey, you got to give me 90 days, you're going to have a dude out here with calendars and X's walking around. So,
oh, Lord.
yeah, so that's why, as a woman, I think this is something that, number one, you keep to yourself.
Okay.
And number two, you kind of, go with the flow, because to me personally, intimacy shouldn't have like a time frame. It should be, hey, when it feels natural and comfortable, it'll happen on its own accord if it's meant to be, in my opinion.
But I do have to say, you know, as a woman, as a mother of daughters, you have grown up hearing, like, why buy the cow if you can get the milk for free? And, I don't know if your mother said that to you, but certainly it
I've
was
heard
said to
similar.
the
I've heard
females
similar
in your
sayings.
family.
I've heard similar sayings.
So you know what I mean? Like, I think the policy of it, and we're not a religious show by any means. We're very inclusive, so we're not like, but I know, coming from my own personal background, um you were taught you were supposed to be waiting for marriage. Well, now that I'm married and divorced, that is not the speech that you are given, or that you're hearing in this very fast-paced society that we live in. It's
That
like,
is an
sex is a
understatement.
microwave time now. 2 minutes to showdown. But for real, like, I get what you're saying, that it's not just some, arbitrary date. But according to research, I've done a little research this evening.
Sure.
They're talking about, even if it wasn't in a religious sense, one of the studies was done by Brigham Young, which of course is associated with Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. And the research done there was, the more stable a relationship is before sex is introduced, then the better the chances of the success of the relationship. And one of the authors was like, well, there's not a lot of research out there. That Brigham Young study is one. But what they're looking at now in another study, which was non-religious associated, was saying that really is what the newest research around successful relationships. And that's the difference. Not just any relationship, but what makes a successful relationship successful. And one of the factors was waiting to introduce sex until the rest of the relationship was more stable. So your experience, or in, people, of course, we're going to take it to the Facebook group. Do you find that to be true or not?
I do tend to agree that the longer you wait to learn the person, beforehand, I think that does definitely lends itself to a higher success rate, in my opinion. So I'm definitely for that.
Hmm.
My only concern in this whole approach is just putting an exact date. That's the only quorum that I have. Everything else, I think it's definitely um, useful. I think it's definitely something that a lot of people should implement, men and women, right? Especially if you're a guy and you're, considering a woman for something serious, and you know that that's what you're approaching her with, and she's aware of it, then
Hmm.
that's going to look good on you as well and her.
Right, a little sniff of respectability, right? I do agree as well that maybe it shouldn't be like a specific date. And what I really like what you said earlier is that keep it to yourself, ladies or gentlemen. Ladies are out here thirst trapping too now, so there may be guys who are a little more old fashioned, and ladies are trying to take it too fast. So we don't want to be um, uh, you know, stereotypical or anything with who is in a hurry. But I like that because at least in your mind, have a game plan for getting to know the person. I think too, a part of the problem with some of that is like, don't get yourself in a situation. Like, don't go um, to the swingers party with your Tinder date. Don't go to the most romantic possible location at the lake, secluded. You know what I'm saying? Don't put yourself in a position where sex becomes even an option if that's what you're trying to do in the first place. Because I think sometimes that 90-day rule gets blown to smithereens
Before it gets started.
before you even get started. Yeah, like, you go in there like,
Oh God.
like this. But the girls are all up and at them, and you got like painting line and everything showing. It's just like, no, girl, don't go in there like that. Give yourself an armor first.
Or
You
and
know,
for men and women, because it's funny because I've had this conversation with my buddies. I'm like, bro, you can't be drinking like that on a date, man. Like you gotta keep some wits to you, because if you're already getting hammered on the first date, that's a terrible look. And odds are you're probably not gonna get a second date unless she's a drunk too. And but at that point,
or an
is that
organ.
really gonna be a successful formula?
Look, you getting your organs harvested one. I mean, but still, like, it's like, how do we make good plans and follow through? And that whole 90-day rule, like, I can remember Think Like a Man by Steve Harvey. I read that book, and everybody got mad at him because he felt like he was giving away the single man's game book or whatever, the playbook. But to me, it made a lot of sense the way he introduced it. And there were several other rules that he talked about, but this particular one, he was just like, give yourself some time because, everybody's first impression, like they're going to go in there and razzle dazzle you. They're going to throw all the best stuff at you. I can remember, going on a date with somebody. They took me up to the, Fahrenheit, one of the rooftop restaurants in Charlotte. Get whatever you want. Do this, do that. Just really throwing the fire and darts out there. And then, the next day, it was just like he was very distant and you know, not very talkative. He didn't text a whole lot. I was just like, is this man just out here on Tinder, trying to get after it? And sure enough, he ultimately, was open and honest enough to say he wasn't really looking for a permanent relationship or something like that. He had just gotten divorced, was free. If he was, could have been lying, who knows? But but it was enough time though to realize like this isn't serious. Like this guy's not looking for his happily ever after with you. So, proceed accordingly or get out of there accordingly. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Walk
But
away
as
from
but
the
as a person, you have to be able to diagnose that and ask the right questions, so that way you don't put yourself in a bind. Because once you get attached or once you get too entangled, man, like the problems come.
Well, and that's another thing too. Like people don't realize, like you have spiritual cords with people you have sex with. Sorry, everybody. You got to know that you know, they're going to be those attachments physically. Either the sex is going to be so mind blowing that you feel like I don't want to shut this person out of my life, even though they treat me like shit, or you're going to emotionally get so attached to the person that if they decide this is over and I don't really want to see you again after this, you know, however long, if it's a night or a few months, a year, whatever, like you really don't have protection against that when you've opened yourself up to those sort of cords and entanglements with a person. So, you know, just know what you're going out there for. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting, though, there was an opposite point of view.
Uh-oh.
In the article I talked about, it said, you know, yeah, it's fine, give it a few weeks. But this one psychotherapist thought that after the honeymoon period, it's too late. He says the desire to have sex may have already subsided. And a 2012 study on sexual desire, he says, found that after the beginning phase of a relationship, sexual desire drops, particularly in women. So maybe men, you know, we go back to that whole, maybe it's encoded in a man's, you know, DNA to you know, procreate and, you know, spread the seed, if you will, that you got to act fast before the getting, you know, while the getting's good, because she gonna be like, boy, bye. after, after too many dates.
You're gonna get the gift. But here's the thing: I listen as a man, or even as any person, right? You're entitled to be like, hey, like we've been hanging out for a long time and we've never crossed this line. Like, what's going on? I've done that before, by the way, to a couple of women because I'm like, we keep, you know, spending time together, but we're not really progressing. So is this a personal thing or is this a belief thing? Or where do we stand with that? Because that way I know how to move. Like if you just want to be friends, that's cool, you know, and I keep it moving. But I don't want to keep investing resources and time for somebody that really isn't into me, you know?
Right. And, you know, and it goes back to, you know, we talked about in that first show, I think it was, how it feels like some people are just, they want a free meal.
Oh, a foodie call.
The foodie call. Yes. That's a whole show title right
We've come full circle. Foodie call. Yeah, you got to be
there.
careful with that.
Yeah. And I think for some men, you know, that's sometimes the flip side of the booty call. Like, you know, there are women out there just, well, not just women. There are probably some men too. I'm not gonna lie, but
Well, what women are buying
people,
these man dinners? Please let me know. Send them my way because
there
you know,
are
I like to eat, so I want to be
people,
taken somewhere nice.
people out there who are just in it for the food, y'all. They're just in it for the food. Stop calling them, okay? Unless you just need a date to go somewhere to be seen, and you know you want some conversation because that's all you're getting. 90 days, notwithstanding. It's gonna be 90 days of eating, and it ain't gonna be eating nothing but some salads and, and some hamburgers and whatnot. So I'm sorry.
My thing is this, Nelsa. My thing is this, Nelsa. Do you really need 90 days to really get to know somebody to know if you really want to pursue them or not?
Okay, research. My guy Barton Goldsmith, the psychotherapist from California,
Okay.
he says, and I quote, um, in his experience, a total of 36 hours spent together is all it takes. And that 36 hours doesn't have to be consecutive. Um, he says it could be a dinner date plus a weekend afternoon spent together and so on until the hours add up. He said it would probably take a few weeks to add up, but 36 hours is what he considers to be the magic number.
So
What do
that
you think?
sounds
What do you think? Think back to somebody you spent 36 hours with before sex.
wow. That is interesting. I didn't know that had a number. I will say this. There is something to be said about the sexual tension that it creates because I will also go on record and say that some of the best intimacy that I've had with women have been women that we waited a long time. And when I say long time, I'm talking about by the new society standard. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We waited a while
At least
to
3 days.
take that. What's that? we waited a while before we took that next step. And I'll tell you what, I'll be damned if the sex wasn't amazing.
Well, that's a part of it, that being able to play with that tension. I don't know if you've read Robert Greene any, he does like the 48 Laws of Power, The Art of Seduction.
I've heard of
And
him, but I have not read too much of his stuff,
perfect.
but I am aware of him. Yes.
Good read, and you can actually listen to it as well on audiobook. But
Nice.
especially if you read the 48 Laws of Power, definitely do that one on audio, guys, because it sounds so sinister. He's got such a good reading voice. I think it's him reading his own book. But in The Art of Seduction, though, he talks about, playing that tension and playing that vibe. Like, it's almost like people have lost the art of seduction, and almost the 90-day rule, or longer than 3 dates, gives you time to really amp up the heat, to create that tide of desire, to create the tension, and just what the eyes eat first, like they say in food. Going back to food again. Clearly, I went on a lot of food dates, but um with the eye eating first and having appetizers and whetting the appetite, and putting things in a way that there is, it's almost like nobody has any modesty anymore, nobody has any restraint anymore, and it's almost like just that whole, gorge your face with food, and you don't really savor the bites, you don't um let the morsel melt on your tongue. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, everybody's in a rush, man. Everybody's in a rush. Everybody's in a hurry, and I get it because I would argue that health and time are our biggest commodities as people. So we have to guard that and we have to be mindful of that. So it's okay to put somebody on the spot and say, hey, are you into me, or where do you see this going? It's okay to ask those questions because you want to preserve your time. Because if somebody's wasting your time, well, then that's not time well spent.
Right, right. And again, like, what's your investment? Now, of course, there's some people who go to the buffet to eat all they can eat, right? And
Yes.
if you love a good buffet and that's where you are in life, fine. But, there are relatively few buffets that are just really designed with quality in mind. It's really about quantity. So if you're out here and you're about quantity, then hey, the 90-day rule might not be for you. But if you're out here and you're really looking for quality, and you're really looking to see if the person compliments you, and you compliment them, y'all make compatible a compatible choice, then time definitely is needed for that. Now, that means if you're a long distance relationship, however, and I will say this for that, having experienced that now a few times, that I think there is a bit more of a spirit of intensity around that, because since you don't have physical access to the other person, you do develop more emotional intimacy, I think, a little quicker than you do in a relationship where you get to see each other every day and you feel like I'll have time to talk about that later.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. That's
so
important. That's a
I,
good point.
I, just for me personally, I have found that to be very satisfying, because sometimes I did not get my emotional needs met very well with men that I dated who were in close proximity. And it was almost like they wanted to drag the game out. Like, they wanted to play that cat and mouse kind of, you know, chase game. And that just wasn't appealing to me, because I felt like I wanted to make real connection. I wanted to really have um, good emotional, mental, and physical stimulus with the person that I'm trying to get to know and get involved with. But I felt like that did not happen as well when we were local and had, easier access to see one another, and maybe talk to one another, or either the flame burn out quicker because you get too much of a good thing, maybe, I don't know. But I have made that observation for myself.
That's deep. I like it. I like that at least you're being aware and mindful. Going back to the 90-day plateau approach, So there's been times where I've seen a woman 4 times in a month, and that was only in a 30-day span, right? And then there's times where I may only see 2 or 3 times somebody in a 90-day span. So that's
Mm,
another reason why sticking to this 90-day policy seems a bit rigid, too rigid for my taste, because it just depends what kind of quality time you're spending together.
okay, and that's a good point. And again, I think that word quality is important. Like now, if you're just making some arbitrary, 90-day rule, 3 month rule up, um, to slow yourself down or to control the flow of the relationship, like because you feel like you can't trust yourself or you don't trust others, then that might need a look, maybe some therapy or some coaching or something like that to take a look at why you feel like you can't let yourself go with the flow of the relationship naturally. But if you're doing it because you really do have, religious moral grounds for, not wanting to just pour yourself out to somebody, and you might be throwing your pearls at the swine, so to speak. So I think that's important to know why you're doing it. And okay, do you think, now you just said ladies keep it to yourself, but let's say we make it past a month, let's say things are going well, we've had
Right.
a good conversation, great dates, then maybe you want to try to make a move on me, or vice versa. Then what? Do we have a conversation about waiting, or do we just stick with the plan?
I think it's important to kind of lay out that, hey, you know what? To me, when you get comfortable with somebody, it should kind of flow seamlessly, where you shouldn't have to say, hey, if you give me 60 more days, we're really going to have something here. Like, to me, it's going to
Hmm.
be, okay, how do I see this playing out after I sleep with this man? And if you feel that it's going to be, that you're going to be respected, you're going to be valued,
Hmm.
and he's going to still respect you and your boundaries, then okay, you should be fine. But if you feel that I don't know, or you're not sure, then yeah, you probably need to wait and hold on until you're ready, because once you give it, ain't no takebacks.
Right, right. And look, and all that secondhand virginity, y'all can go on to the thrift store with that, right? Excuse me, is that the right term? No. Anyway, on our Facebook post, Jamie Baskin, who is always making some really good comments on our posts. Our question was, it's time to focus on, well, the focus was 90 days before sex. What's your thoughts? Have you tried it? Tell us your stance and why. So Jamie says 90 days led to abstinence for me. That's a very productive 90 days right there. I realized how unintentional people were with their bodies. LOL, I never expected to extend my single season with this decision, but that's what I did. As I continued to date, the men I came across were all emotionally unavailable. I became more aware of the emotional scars and walls of hurt that people have stacked up against them, but continually use sex as a coping mechanism to validate what sex cannot validate, however, complicates. So, yes, I tried it and never went back. The healthiest version of a me has emerged. Although I understand this may not be everyone's journey, it has been mine. Wow, Jamie, thank you for that.
That
Thank
was deep. I read that and I was like, wow, this was very interesting. But it sounds like she's found, a new approach. She's comfortable with it. More importantly, she's happy with it. So at the end of the day, that's really all that matters, and everything else is,
you.
respected. And obviously, that's going to weed out the weak. So if you're a
Well,
man or a woman, and they're like, hey, you know what? No, I don't want to do that. Well,
no,
all right. It was nice talking to you. Thank you, and have a good
right.
life.
Next, but it's been 3 years, so the conversation continued. I really want to read this, guys, because I'm telling you, this is some good stuff. It's been 3 years, and the benefits are many. I've learned to be okay with me and to not lead with my sexuality. I'm not confused when I see red flags and not tempted to ignore them. That's a huge one right there. I
Big
learned that my
time.
expectations are not unfathomable, just not being met by the right person. Okay, I love this. Like, you've got a bar, and if people don't make it, you don't keep moving with them. You know, and I don't think that's unreasonable, honestly. Like, you know, if you know what your standard for happiness is, you know, it may take a long time to find the right person who meets that standard. And maybe you're that person, you know, ultimately. We learn that, right? She said the drawbacks are I have eliminated more than half of the dating population.
Oh
Not
my
very
God.
many options for me. Oh, Jamie. Oh, Shannon Fox writes, if I meet someone and we both have the intentions of dating to see if a serious relationship is possible, then I will typically try to impose a 90-day before sex type rule. I'm very intentional. There's that word again. And honest in my emotions. And I find sex can make things complicated if either party is unsure of their feelings. Plus, if I'm trying to seriously date the ones who want to butter me up, just to get me in bed, go running pretty fast if I say they have to wait. Um,
It's survival of the fittest.
well, Donna Ridenhour says, Jorge Medina, you know I have always had a 90-day plan. So you know how
Yes,
I
she
feel.
ain't lying.
Donna, you put it out there, honey. You put it out there. I love it. I love it. Um, Mary Matthews, I don't see any men besides you on this one, Jorge. That's a solid minority, is what's happening there. Jorge
That's
Medina,
okay.
you are exactly right. Natural and easy flow and build of the physical and emotional relationship. So, Mary, amen to your comment about um, it shouldn't, how you didn't feel like it should be a hard stance, you know, or making it forced or unnatural. Um, Mary continued to say, I tend to get super defensive and can't relax if I'm pushed. And I think maybe if you need 90 days to relax and let it develop, go for it. But I don't think I would put an exact number of dates and such. Some people are easy to relax around and you can mesh well quickly. Others, weeks later, you still feel like you can't relax. Yeah, no way to predict that. Jams is on here. Hey, Jams. She said, nope.
Oh my God.
Oh, I love it. Oh, so we do
She
have
said the
some
hell with
diverse.
that 90-day rule.
We got some diverse ideas here. We got some diversity in our group tonight. So thank you everybody who participated in that. I love to do the reader stuff the best because you guys do not hold back, and I love it.
I love it. Yeah, our listeners, they're very open and they keep it 100, as they say, which I like because that's kind of what we
Always,
try to shoot with the podcast. We like to be upfront and kind of
yeah.
speak from the heart. But I will say this, from the fellas' perspective, I think it's good to have an internal clock, to have an idea of whether
Mhm.
you know that, hey, this is leading for something serious or not. Just because you might be wasting a lot of time and resources that you probably could have been spending more wisely if you're not careful. So that's why it's
Yeah.
important to have a little clock right in the back of your mind. I know I do.
Hmm.
And that clock to me just serves me as, hey, where are we going with this? And if I don't know, then that leads to another conversation that needs to be had, because I don't want to be spending my finances on an operation that's not going to yield any results. You
Hey,
understand?
no romance, no finance. It works both ways, ladies. Poppy says, no finance if no romance. Just so you know.
And oh, and let me say this:
Mm,
while I was out in Miami, you won't believe how many ladies came out of the woodworks to greet me when I was down in Miami,
I
which I
would I would
which
not
I
be
thought was
surprised.
very fascinating.
I would not be surprised. Hey, fresh meat is fresh meat, no matter the meat market. Listen, if you are new on the scene, the old heads know about it. Listen, they know exactly who is on the block every weekend and who is not. So, listen, I know you lit the night sky up for the ladies coming down through there in all your finery. So, I love it though. And you know, again, no judgment. There's no, we just love the conversation. We love to put the question out there to make you think, because if, and I love that word intentional that Jamie and some of the other ones used in the comments, because building a relationship, knowing what you want, having the life you've dreamed of, whether it's your professional life or your personal life, takes intentionality. And if you don't even talk about these things like they don't exist, then what's going to happen when you run up into the situation on the date? You haven't been listening to the show and getting prepared for these things. So we just want to be able to help keep you prepared, everybody. Keep you prepared. This dating thing is wild and crazy now. It feels like a constant reality show or something. Um, but it's funny because Too Hot to Handle. I don't know if any of you guys know this, and this is not a plug for this show. I only happen to be, strolling through and happen to find it on Netflix. I think it is, or one of those channels. And these are people that like typically don't wait. And so the premise of the show is that they'll win this huge pot of money to split if everyone is abstinent during the show. And if they don't kiss, if they don't make out, they don't do anything that's, against the rules. And if they do, like every time somebody like got caught kissing or somebody confessed to kissing, they got like $25,000 or $12,000 or something like that taken off the pot of money.
Oh
So
man,
it goes
really?
to show you how we have become so programmed to act fast in a situation, as opposed to like money was not even enough of a
Incentive.
yes,
Yeah.
to stop people from the just that primal animal need. So again, it's all about being intentional and knowing what you want and having boundaries, I think, too. And like if you don't know what your boundaries are, you probably need to think about that before you start out on a date that, could lead you some places you maybe aren't ready to go. Or at least if you want to go fast and you don't want a real serious thing, I just still think honesty is the best policy. Because a lot of women probably would be okay with a man saying, I only want to be in a casual relationship, friends with benefits or whatever. I think too often we are really underestimated when it comes to what you can say in terms of being honest and how far that can get you. Because sometimes people are just tired of being played. They're tired of you acting like you're into me when you only wanted one thing, and then you ghost after we've gone down this long road pretending. And then you ruin people for the next person.
Agreed. And so I'm a big stand-up comedy fan, and I listen to a lot of Dion Cole. And I remember even in one of his stand-ups, he said, some of the best moments of my life have occurred by being honest.
Yeah.
And he says, and when you keep it honest, people can say a lot of things about you, but they can't say that you weren't honest. And that right there equals a certain level of respect that you will gain from being honest and being real. And by being real, you can benefit from somebody who finds it refreshing that, you know what, you are being intentional with your intentions. And I appreciate that, because that is hard to find these days.
I think that's a perfect note to end this show on.
Absolutely.
Add anything to it, but thank you all for joining us again. We look forward to our next show. Please follow us on YouTube, Relationship Cycle. We're also on Spotify and other podcast outlets. And our website is www.relationshipcycle.com. And that's all until next time, everybody.
Gracias, people. Thanks for joining us today on the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa. Do you have show ideas? Email us at jorgeandnelsa@gmail.com. Follow us on Spotify or anchor.fm